So, why is it that whenever change comes into the experiences, we tend to get freaked out? We shut down, we run away, we lock up, whatever it is. I feel like we have an opportunity to reset how we view change. We've got the availability now to look at change, feel change, experience change in a totally different way. We're really ready for this. We've been ready for a little while. Some in our everyday lives, our families, our friends, they might be a little more ready than us. We might be a little more ready than them, but we're ready. We're all ready to some degree to stop fighting with change, but actually kind of welcome it and be okay with it and entertain it. I love that word. I use it a lot when I'm talking to students, to group spaces I hold on Zoom and events. And I'll say, what are we entertaining? And can we entertain this? Because we're always entertaining something, even if it's the fear of change, as in we're leaning into that and we're amplifying that and we're allowing ourselves to kind of feel that fear of change. That's entertaining fear of change, right? Engaging fear of change, connecting with being fearful of change. But we have the opportunity to entertain shifting the way we experience change and really setting an entirely new conversation into flow, into the mix on how we process change.
This is a space of discovery. This is a space of remembrance. Join A.L. Garris and welcome to this space.
So welcome to the A.L. Garris space, and today we're going to talk about just that, processing change. Funny enough, the intro to this is a bit different than usual because I decided to change. It's very common to get afraid, to have fear when we consider changing something, right? And we can even become friends with fear. I know that's a big one, and it's weird in some ways to even say it like that. But I've talked about it before. Fear is not necessarily a negative. Fear is a warning mechanism, right? Like if you're doing something, maybe a sport type activity. For me, I used to love rollerblading, and I can remember rollerblading and losing my balance and getting like this wave of fear through my body, right? And it was just a warning mechanism that I lost my balance and I needed to regain my balance or I might fall. So the fear coming in as I was losing my balance wasn't a bad thing. It was a warning mechanism to just get my balance, right? As best I could. Of course, sometimes they didn't and I did fall, but I got back up and I just learned how to continue forward. So when you're dealing or having a life experience, dealing with something, having a life experience where change is coming in, whether you're confronting the possibility of changing something to do with a relationship you're in, maybe it's your availability to them. We've talked about boundaries before. So maybe you're setting a boundary in your relationship, but that's going to change your relationship. And so then fear comes in and says, wait a minute, we don't know if we feel comfortable with change. So fear says, maybe we shouldn't change. What if we don't like it? What if it's not what we intended? What if it's not how we wanted it to go? And that is the conversation, I think, that we have the opportunity to and the availability and responsibility right now to shift and to change. So let's look at that alone. When your inner knowing or the inner voice says to you, we don't like change, we're afraid to change. And again, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be a relationship and boundaries with a person. It could be changing your job and starting a new job, or keeping your old job while you step into a hobby of yours that might become a career. But it's scary to give up the other space and step into the unknown and change that way you've been being. It could be going back to school. It could be leaving school and saying, this isn't my heart. I'm going to go and I'm going to follow my heart, and I'm going to change my life trajectory into this new alignment. Whatever it is that you in your own individual life are looking at and engaging, that there is a change, a potential change on your horizon or your wish list. You have the opportunity to change the way you even look at change. You have the opportunity to change the way you feel about change. You don't have to fear it. It's normal to have some hesitation and some apprehension when you're going to do something new. Absolutely normal. But you can adjust that fear level to just be normal and not be overwhelming, right? So when you're engaging life and you're navigating your decisions in life, your choices, and you are deciding to implement something new, to change something and move in a new direction, what if you go into that space with a new mindset? What if you change your mind first on how you feel about change? And what if you start looking at change in general, no matter where it's at or where it's coming in, experience-wise in your life? What if you start looking at change as something really positive, something that's opening a door to a new space, something that's bringing in the opportunity of a new connection, a new flow, a new alignment, a new opportunity? Interestingly enough, most people enjoy buying new things. Most people, they enjoy buying new clothing, buying new shoes, getting a new bag, maybe a new vehicle, a new home, whatever it is, small or large. Most people like getting something new. And I can remember long time ago coming home with several new blouses, new tops, new pants from the store, and being so excited about the new things that I had brought home. And then I went into my closet to hang them up. And I was so excited about these new pieces of clothing, and they were so pretty and fresh. And I went into my closet and at that time, my closet was so full. It was just crammed full of clothes that I had just had for years and years and years and years, that I almost didn't have a space to put anything new in there because I hadn't changed that space. I hadn't changed my closet. I hadn't taken out any of the stuff I really wasn't into anymore. I hadn't given it away or sold it or whatever my choice would have been. But I was just full of all this old stuff that my new stuff didn't even feel as respected, I guess is a way to look at it, or loved by me, because I was cramming it in to a space that was just, in a sense, way too full. And I remember looking at that and thinking inside of my being, I almost feel like the world, like the system of energy and consciousness and creation, universe, God, I almost feel like it's based on energy resonance. It's based on energy alignment and connection. And if our spaces are just too full of the old, change and expansion and abundance and movement and flow aren't really welcome in our lives. We don't give them any room. We give them no availability, but then we find ourselves in conversations with other people, our family members, our friends, where we're like, yeah, I really wish I could get a better job. I really wish I could find a better guy or a better girl, relationship, somebody who really gets me. And I know clothes and people and jobs are all different, very different parts of life, but they're all representations of connections we hold. And if we're so full and we're unavailable to change, to move anything around, to let things go, to open new doors, it's almost like there's no room for universe to send anything new. There's no room for God to send that relationship you've been waiting on, or the system, source, whatever your word is. All of them will work. We can let that be a change we all allow here today if it works. To be a little more open-minded on the word usage, because really the way in which this whole thing is unfolding and happening is beyond any word any of us will ever choose. We put these words on it, we think they'll work, we think they'll fit perfectly, but it's way beyond. It's way beyond. So think about that for just a second. I think this is a really good way to help our minds see being more open to change. Think about a closet, your closet. Maybe you have a friend, maybe a family member, but think about a closet that's so full that there's like no room for anything new. There's no room for a change because it's just bulging at the seams, right? And then think about that closet and kind of like organize it in your head. So take a few boxes off the shelf, clear the stuff off the floor, in the corners, vacuum it in your mind, dust it, free up a few hangers, just reset that space a bit. And also at the same time, kind of feel into being able to give some things away to somebody who may need them, and or sell them if you need the income, extra income. But that visual you're holding in your head right now of that closet that has some space. The shelves have some space. The racks have some space. There's some free hangers available. Yeah, you had to make a decision to part with some things. Yes, you had to decide to allow yourself to change a little bit of your space and your go-to items. But you also opened up a space of availability for that which you're ready in this next level of you to be able to show up. You've made room for more of you. One of the biggest reasons why people fear change is they're afraid to fail. We are afraid that if we change something, if we step out of the norm of what we're used to, we might fail, or it might not be what we thought it would be, and we'll mess up, or things will get messed up. And I totally understand that. But I really believe that we're created, we're made, we're designed to evolve and change. We are. It's like the healthiest state of being is to be available to change. The healthiest state for your body, for your mind, for your spirit is to be available to change, to be okay with change, to love change, to embrace change. And it's normal to have hesitation and fear when you're stepping into a space you have never been before. That's absolutely normal. But that's it. It's normal. It doesn't have to be seen as something that blocks us or stands in our way. I've done a lot of change. I've done a lot of change over the last probably 15 to 20 years. And I've changed the very essence of my belief structure. I changed the way I look at who I am and the world around me. I changed my religious structure, my spiritual structure. I changed my health. I changed the way I understood motherhood and the way I mothered my children. I changed the way I understood being a wife and being married, and the way in which I believe in myself. I changed all of that. And at each increment, at each decision, there was hesitation and there was fear, but not in a sense where I allowed it to keep me from growing and expanding any longer, because I lived that way for like probably 40 some years of my life. I've always been extremely outgoing. I've always loved talking to people and getting in front of crowds and sharing and teaching. This has never been a problem for me. It's a natural state that I like to be in. But to tell my truth was not always natural. That's where the biggest change for me is to just speak from my heart and allow my higher mind and my higher heart to flow through me to be authentic. And you can tell because like I have an Instagram channel and I have a YouTube and TikTok and all these spaces, Facebook, Patreon. Okay. So when you go back and you look at the first ones, you can see a woman who is available to change, but afraid because I was coming in and I was showing up and I was being available to do things different, to say things different, to just allow my authenticity. But you can tell that I was afraid. I was afraid that people would say I was crazy. Who is this woman? What is she saying? Why does she think somebody wants to hear this? Or what is she even talking about? Whatever. I remember in the beginning of my personal journey of really stepping into my authenticity and changing, no longer creating content that I thought was the cookie cutter version everybody wanted to see, or talking about things with my family and friends that I thought was the normal thing to talk about. I still talk about everyday life, but I'm very authentic. So if you're in my circle, you're going to know I'm going to use words that, higher mind, higher heart, consciousness, energy. I'm going to talk about things that I truly believe in, but I don't do it in a way in which I have to have everybody else that I'm talking to believe it like me. They don't have to believe like me. They don't have to agree with me, but I'm not going to change who I am in order to maintain a relationship. All right. I guess that's what I mean. But when I was becoming more authentic and stepping into that space of myself, I did have the fear of it not being what I thought it would be and like getting judged or messing it up or whatever. But I heard in my head, in my being, in my heart, I could hear this inner voice of mine saying, one day you're going to be this old lady and you're going to be near death. You're going to be near leaving this human experience you're in now. And you're going to look back at your life. And when you do that, who did you live for? I remember hearing that in my being. I remember hearing a space of myself actually say, who are you living for? Andrea, who are you living for? And then I heard more and I said, are you living for your mom? To make her happy, to keep, her loving you or proud of you or whatever by doing what you think that is? Are you living for your dad? Are you living for your pastor? Are you living for your neighbor? Are you living for your kids? Or are you living for you? And I looked around my life that I hadn't changed in a very long time, probably my whole life. And I realized that all my decisions were based on a societal structure of what I was told you should do if you fit this category and you are this certain, person or whatever, like a wife, a mother, a daughter. I realized I was checking off the boxes that I thought I needed to check off in order to be seen as good or doing it right or whatever. And I realized I was giving my life away. So I made a decision to change. And when I made the decision to change, my change was to become authentic. To no longer do a job that I was told by society was considered a good job, or do a job that checked off all the boxes for what a good job looked like. I was no longer going to entertain relationships that I was keeping just because I thought I was supposed to keep them. I thought I was supposed to take care of them. I thought that's just what you do. And I allowed myself to step into this truth and authenticity of who I was, and allowed it in every area of my life. Even though certain spaces brought fear of change, hesitation of the unknown, I still stepped in. And there were these spaces that I remember navigating and having and experiencing that were uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable. I remember hearing from certain family members that they were worried about me and my choices and my religious standings. And I remember having to have conversations with certain people in my family that were uncomfortable because they feared my change, which is another space of this we don't always realize or talk about. We think about how we fear change, right? And how we can change that, how we can step into a new way of processing change. But that doesn't mean everybody else in our life gets the memo. And so then when we change, they move into a space of themselves maybe that they're uncomfortable because we're not who we were. And I wasn't who I was. I was very blessed as I navigated my life changes. A lot of people would call it like I had a spiritual awakening. I was very blessed because my husband was able to kind of meet me right where I was at. And he didn't feel the need to kind of be afraid of my change. He wasn't comfortable with all of the changes I was making because there was a lot of things I was learning about. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. I mean, I read the Quran. I'd already read the Bible, so I read the Quran. Why not, right? I want to know everything. I don't want to hold myself back from any of the information I can get my hands on. And so I studied Buddhist teachings. I studied quantum physics. I studied everything I could get my hands on. And that opened up and changed a lot of the ways I looked at the world. I looked at myself. I looked at my family. And so I started doing things differently. I started just being very different in my everyday world. And some of the things I did and I was into at the time, they did not interest my husband at all. And I remember him saying, and this is a good one, and this is going to help somebody else who's in this space. I remember him saying, I'm totally cool if you're into this now and you want to do this, but don't do it for me. Like, I don't want, this specific topic was, I was learning about tarot. So I was learning about how to read tarot cards. So we'll be very specific for context. And I'm not really into them as much now. I did learn it and I do own some, and I do think it's fascinating, and I love when someone is very good at it and it's their thing. I have a family member who's really good at it and I admire that, and I'm fascinated by it because it's all energy, and it's the energy of the cards in connection with the energy of the person you're reading for, and it's just the way that we can gain additional communication, understanding. But my husband was so sweet because I was so excited about learning tarot. And he said, I think that's cool if you want to do it, but just don't do it for me. Like, don't ask me to read my cards. Like, don't do a reading for me. So if you know tarot, you know about card reading, you know what I'm talking about. And I thought, okay, like, that's awesome, right? I think at that point we had been married about 20 some years. So we already had a pretty good commitment level going on, and nobody was wanting to throw anything out the window, but there was a lot of change happening. And so I think that's a really good note to like look at and let ourselves see, is that change doesn't mean it has to, blow everything up and, you know, it's got to be a totally different life on the other side of the change. It can be spaces blow up, you know, certain connections or relationships or jobs or whatever. Maybe they're no longer there on the other side of the change. And then maybe it takes a little while for them to kind of dissipate and go away and new things to come in. And then maybe it's like all out boom, right? It's always going to be, in my opinion, whatever you're ready for and whatever's best for you. So keep that in mind. And so when my husband said, you know, like, hey, I know you're into this right now, and because I was a change I had made, right? But I'm not. I wasn't like mad at him. I wasn't hurt because he didn't like what I liked. I wasn't like upset. I was just grateful. I was just so grateful that I lived in an environment where I could follow my heart. I could look into new spaces of connection, of understanding for myself. And I was safe to do it. You know, I get it. There's relationships that people are in where the other is not as kind and the other might be demeaning or judgmental or difficult when you step into a new space of yourself. So I get that. But my heart would say, don't give your life away to anybody else. You know? Navigate as gently as you can if you're in an intense space. So if you're in a relationship or you're in a space that it's not as easy, it's not as supportive of your change, of your choices to change, navigate as gently as you can. So what does that mean? It means don't throw your change in everybody's face. That's just my humble advice. If it doesn't work for you, fine. Watch something else, you know, connect in another space. But why I say that is making change in your life is a big deal, period. You don't need to go to all out war to do it. So if you're in a situation, in a relationship, maybe you live with your parents and maybe they're not into what you're into. And maybe you know in your heart of hearts that if they find out you made this change, they're just going to be like all up in your business and they're going to be like difficult. So why take that on if you don't have to? Why not consider allowing the changes in a way that is more gentle for them, but profound for you? So follow your heart. Don't hesitate. Do what you need to do to engage these new spaces of you, to clean out that closet, to open up and make room for your authenticity. But for the people in your life that you necessarily don't want to get rid of, or you hope to see them kind of embracing your changes along the way, be available to not have to shove it down their throat. Does this make sense? Be available to not have to have them want to change or see you change at the moment you've decided to do it. Because it's like, give them a minute to kind of catch up. And if they never catch up, fine, deal with it when you get there, right? But don't let that keep you from leaning in, trusting, and allowing your authenticity. Because that's really what we're doing when we're changing. We're allowing our true self. And so whether that's a job we're changing, or a relationship we're changing, or a health, some things we're doing for our health, or hobbies, or schedules. So whatever it is that we're bringing change into, let's make a pact. Yeah, let's make a pact, okay? All right, right now, pinky promise. Can you do it? Pinky promise. Have you ever heard of that before? Okay, somebody's like, what is this lady doing? And somebody else is like, pinky promise. I'm so there with you. Okay, so pinky promise is like you're making a pact. You're making a promise to yourself, but I'll share the pact with you. I'll be your person if you want. And so we're going to make a pact. We're going to make a promise to ourselves right now that we're going to no longer immediately fear change. But we're going to start resetting our mind, our program, our belief that change is an opportunity for a new level of you. Can you do that? Change is an opportunity for a new level of me. Like, say it one time. Change is an opportunity for a new level of me. You're still breathing. You're still here. So we'll pinky promise that we're going to look at change as a friend. Look at change as an opportunity to a new level of us. Pinky promise, pinky promise, pinky promise. And if you know, you know. Okay. So we've made a pact. We've held an intention together. That's a very powerful alignment. That's a very powerful alignment. And it's okay if we hesitate, but we're not going to allow hesitation to shut us down. It's okay if we question, and if we step in and step out and then step back in, but we're not going to give up. We're going to know and believe with everything in us that we have what it takes, and everything that we need and everything that we want flows easily into our lives when we allow it to do so. That was an actual affirmation I started saying when I was in the beginning of my spiritual awakening and changing my entire life. And I went from a woman who was I said this in another video, so I'm going to cap it smaller here. But I went from a life where I had really big debt, financial debt. I had health issues. I was angry all the time because I was tired. I was exhausted mentally and emotionally. I had a job I didn't like, but it was a good job, but it wasn't my heart. It wasn't my purpose. And I was kind of robotically going through life, doing what you're supposed to do. And so there wasn't a lot of massive deep joy. There was pockets of joy, deep joy, but there wasn't a lot of like everyday joy, right? And then I changed. I changed my beliefs about myself and the world around me. I stopped when my mind wanted to be angry at every little thing and judge every little space. I purposefully began to initiate the change of my thought. Change your thoughts, change your life. Shout out Wayne Dyer. Love that guy. So I purposefully implemented to change my thoughts. And because I believed I could change my life if I did so. Our thoughts produce our life. As a man thinks, so shall he be. So when I wanted to be angry and pick apart a situation or a person or whatever, and find the reason why everything was wrong and nothing had to do with me, I decided to change that, right? And so I purposefully implemented, you have to train you. No one else is going to do this. You have to do it. Okay? You have to realize you're running a program that's producing a reality, and you have to decide to no longer run it, change it, and run a new one. And so I would purposefully stop the negative thought and the judgment thought, and I would purposefully implement and think a new one. And I would say it out loud. And one of those was, everything I want and everything I need flows easily into my life. Because I was doing the opposite. I was constantly like, oh, it's so hard. Oh my God, it sucks. Oh, I owe so many people money. And oh my God, I don't like my job. And oh my God, every time I turn around, I'm tired and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't even want to hang out with you. Like, for God's sakes, lady. Please. So I began implementing, flipping all of those phrases, flipping all of those go-to thoughts and reactions. And I began implementing these opposite type spaces of belief. And I began to change. And some spaces of change were scary, and I did hesitate, but I didn't give up. I leaned in, I trusted myself, and I kept allowing my expansion. I kept allowing my healing. I kept allowing my shifting, and I kept allowing my change. So just consider that. Consider the promise you've just made to yourself here today to look at change differently. Consider I'm holding the line with you. I'm holding the line with you energetically, supportively, with encouragement for you that you totally got this. You totally got this. You can go off of this video and this podcast, walk into your life and look at change in a totally new way. Change the way you look at change. You can change the way you feel about change. And you can step in to your life in a totally new connection point of view and watch the reflection start showing up, matching the change you decided to make. You so got this. This has been great. I love it. I love us. Thank you for being here. If you don't already subscribe, please consider doing so. I'd love to have you be a part of the channel space as well. And if you have any ideas of topics, we have a form right below the video here, and you can fill it out and we'll get it, and we can talk about your topic here on the podcast space. So thanks for being with us today in the A.L. Garris space.